Good morning, students. I hope my screen is visible to you. So, a very quick recap. So, yesterday we have covered the language basics, and I have shown you some examples with code running in the Eclipse, and even I have shown you how to give the command line arguments from the Eclipse IDE. Okay, let me once again just start my Eclipse. I hope all of you have practiced them in your own desktop machines, because until you practice and explore these things, you can't be familiar with them. So that's the reason I'm recommending you to practice them. And the reason why I'm going with YouTube live is so that if you people forget anything while you are doing it on your own, you can just once again watch the video, pause it for a while, and then check it once, and then you can practice it. For that reason, I'm conducting YouTube live. Hope it will help you. And let's continue from where we have stopped yesterday. So yesterday I have covered the language basics. So we have discussed the data types, and then I have shown you some basic things like conversion of number systems. All those things I have shown you with examples in that program which I have taken, and even I have shown you the command line arguments, how to pass the command line arguments. And let's resume. Yeah, up to here we have seen. I said you yesterday also, like if a number begins with 0, it is the sign of saying that it is octal number. If the number begins with 0x, it is to mention that it is an hexadecimal number. And even I have said you how to convert the number systems from one number system to other number system, and what will be the result if we try to compile and execute the following. I hope you can easily predict it. It's going to be error, because you cannot have a variable starting with a digit. Always the variable should start with a alphabet followed by digits or alphabets, and only separator that can be used in between the variable name is underscore. So this will raise an error. You can just try and explore that. And next, what will be the result if you try to compile and execute the following code? So this you can just understand it. So I already said there's no concept of garbage value. Let me once again bring you the magnifier for easy understanding. So here, suppose if I just declare int x, and then if I try to print the variable x, the point to be noted here is I haven't declared it. Sorry, I haven't initialized it. So you can see what is the error it is raising. What is it? So the local variable x may not have been initialized. But if the same variable, I'm just cutting it, and if I'm pasting it above this method, that is, I'm making it instance variable, but still it is raising error. The reason is because within a static method, we will shortly discuss about these types anyway. So I cannot access non-static variables from a static method. So that's the only error here. So if I just declare it to be static, spelling mistake. So static. Now you can see there is no error. Now there is no error, and we have already discussed when I have discussed about the data types. There is no concept of garbage value. They will be initialized to default values. Now, if I just run this, now you can see 0 being displayed. Now you can see 0 being displayed. But the local variables you cannot have them without being declared. Sorry, initialized. Without being initialized. You must and should have all the local variables initialized or evaluated with an expression before you use them. Before you use the local variables, they must be either initialized or they must be holding some evaluated expression value. So that's what the point. So that is what here the error you can see, and match the following table. After looking at the data types, you can easily match this. So character, it is of 2 bytes. Byte will be for 1 byte. Int, it is 4 bytes. Double, it is of 8 bytes. Next, now coming to the types of variables. So this is a point I mentioned. Now here in Java we have 3 types of variables. In Java we have 3 types of variables. First one, local variables. So all the variables that you define inside a method, all the variables you define inside a method, we call them local variables. And their scope is within the method only. And their scope is within the method only. Next, instance variables. And instance variables are non-static variables. Earlier you have seen in that example when I have just declared int x itself. So you have got error because I have tried to access the non-static variable from a static context. That's the error you have seen. So here instance variables are non-static, and these variables are defined inside a class above all its methods. And instance variables are those variables that you define inside a class above all its methods. Those variables we call it instance variables. They are associated with the object. So each and every object of the class will have its own copy of instance variables. Every object will have its own copy of the variables, and their scope is within the class, whereas the local variable scope is within the method. The local variable scope is within the method. So once the method terminates, the life of the local variable expires, whereas these instance variables will have its life throughout the class. That means all the methods of the class, all the methods of the class can access and alter the instance variables. I repeat, the local variables will have its life only within the method, whereas the instance variables, you can also call them as class variables, have its life throughout the class. That means all the methods of that particular class can access and alter the variable values. And the third type is static variables. So unlike instance variables, static variables are tied to the class, not to the object. Just now I said instance variables are tied to the object. What does it mean? So every object will have its own copy of variables, whereas static variables are tied to the class. That means n number of objects, n number of objects will be having single copy. That is what the difference. Next, the next point you should remember is, so from a non-static method from a non-static method you can access both the static and non-static variables. I repeat, from a non-static method you can access both the static and non-static variables, whereas from a static method you can access only static variables. From a static method you can access only static variables. This point you should remember. This point you must remember. That's regarding the static. Next, coming to the operators. So here we have 6 types of operators, and one operator which is not specified there is ternary operator. So arithmetic operators, as you all know what are the various arithmetic operators. arithmetic addition, arithmetic subtraction, arithmetic multiplication, arithmetic division, and modulus operation, which leaves you the remainder. These are the arithmetic operators. And next comes the unary operators. So under unary operators, we will be having unary plus, unary minus, increment operator, decrement operator. These are the operators that you get under unary operators. And next, relational operators. So under relational operators, you will be having double equal to, which is used to check for two values whether they are equal or not, not equal to check for the non-equality of two values, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. And next comes the logical operators. So these logical operators are used to check for the it returns boolean. These logical operators return boolean on checking on two or more conditions. Like if you want to check for two conditions, then you can go for logical and, logical or, logical not, and the resultant is going to be boolean, and the resultant of these logical operators is boolean. This is about the logical operators. And next, the bitwise operators. So bitwise operators, you have bitwise and, bitwise or, bitwise XOR. So I would like to just show you simple examples using these bitwise operators, because in my certification exam also I got a small code snippet on this. So I would like to show you this bitwise operators example, because many of you just know what is this symbol, that this is a bitwise and, this is a bitwise or, this is bitwise XOR. You will be able to recognize, but in the code snippet you must be able to evaluate it. So I'll just show you a small example. Okay, here itself you can have the example, you can see the example. So if you have integer x 7, integer y 9. Now if you perform 7 and 9, that means it is going to perform bitwise and. You already know the truth table of the AND or XOR. So the truth table of AND is, if both bits are 1, then only the resultant is 1. That means if any of the operand is 0, then the resultant is 0. So both should be 1 in order to have the output 1. Whereas OR operation, if both are 0, then only the result is 0. So if either of the operand has 1, then the output is 1. Coming to XOR, so if both operands are same, then the output is 0. If both are same, then the output is 0. That means if you have 1 1 or 0 0, then the result is 0. Else the result is 1. This basic knowledge is sufficient for you to evaluate and understand what will be the output. Now here you can see, if you have two variables, integer x and integer y, with the x being initialized to 7 and y being initialized to 9, and if you try to print x and y, if you just try to print x and y, so what will be the result? The result is going to be 1. The result is going to be 1. Here you can see with example. So 7 binary equivalent is 0 1 1 1. 9 binary equivalent is 1 0 0 1. So when you perform the AND operation, you are getting it as 0 0 0 1. So whose decimal equivalent is 1. That is the reason, if you give this example to the program, you will be able to see the output being displayed as 1. So x is 7, y is 9. So if you perform the AND operation, the result is 1. That is the reason you can see the output as 1. Similarly, if you perform the OR operation, here another example you can see, 5 and 9. So the binary equivalent of 5 is 0 1 0 1, and the binary equivalent of 9 is 1 0 0 1. So if you perform the OR operation, so you will be getting 1101, whose decimal equivalent is 13. So you can see the output being displayed 13. Similarly, XOR operation. Again, the same example, 5 and 9. So 0101, the binary equivalent of 5, 1001, the binary equivalent of 9. As I said, if both are same, if both the inputs are same, then the resultant is 0. So here you can see 1100, the output whose decimal equivalent is 12. So you can just try them in your IDE and check for the outputs. So here you can see these are the quiz. Public static void main, I value is 10, J value is 20, boolean check. So I value less than J value. I hope you can understand this. Yes, this condition is true. So check will be containing true. So you are just displaying the check value. Yeah, that is it. And one more thing I wanted to mention. Yesterday when observed, not many of you have still started your login. Many of you have not yet login and not going through this particular app as per the schedule what we have already submitted to Wipro. According to them, it's been like 1 week that we have started this training, even though I started from Monday, but still they can track it that not many of you are logging in and working this. So I recommend every one of you to once a day at least log in. And also this one also I mentioned as part of the concepts whatever I am covering. Here you can see the exercises, hands on exercises. I want you to just to try them. It's not so difficult, very easy. You can just try them and explore, and after completing, click these check boxes, and then click on update completion status. Click on update completion status, because I already mentioned for every synergy ID, the tracker is maintaining on what IP addresses you are working, and what is your present hands-on exercise completion status, and how much duration you have spent on this PBLapp. Everything is being tracked. So that is the reason I'm saying after completing the task, I want you to just work on this hands-on exercises and click these check boxes and click on update completion status, and then you can just see that your exercises, how many you have submitted, updated, how many of the exercises you have updated. So please do this. Again, we don't want any report received for any particular synergy ID saying that they have not logged in or they have not completed any exercises like that. So just keep doing that. Along with that, I also want you to explore this logic uh, programming. This logic programming also I want you to explore. Here you can see logic building our plan M1, logic building our plan M2A, logic building our plan M2B. I have already opened them. So if you see, this is what the first logic building exercises. Here you have altogether 29 problems. Here you have altogether 29 problems, and for these things you don't require me to continue with the Java concepts only, because these things you already know. Only thing is just understand the problem on the left side panel and try to build your own logic. And another thing I wanted to remind you is, whenever you open this link, I already mentioned, whenever you open this link, it will just open like this. And when you click the launch test, the test is being loaded. When you click the launch test, uh, very quickly I'll just move on. So there are 29 problems in the first one. So here you just give some. So just start it, and remember the fact that when you open this panel, it's not going to be Java only. Remember that point, because otherwise what happens is, whatever the code, without seeing, if you just type it, And when you recognize that whatever the code you have typed is in Java and the language here selected is C, the code will vanish. So remember that point. So first you need, check the language which it is being selected and change the language to which you want to write the code, and then observe this description which is given on the left side panel, and then start writing the code, and then compile and test, and keep watching this time, and make sure that you are able to submit your code within that time. And these are not going to be evaluated, these are for practice purpose for your assessment tests. Whatever the in between assessment tests will be there, then at that time again you will be given this questions from this metal platform only. So that's the reason, keep practicing them. And there are altogether 47 problems. Just let me close this. So as I said, here you have logic building our plan M1, M2A, M2B. For these things, you don't require me to cover all these concepts. You can start working on them. You can start working on them. So whenever you are free, I want you to explore at least two coding problems, because there are altogether 47 coding problems I said. So start one by one and then submit them, and please copy that code for future reference purpose, because these codes what you are going to submit will not be saved in your local machines. So what I want you to do is, before you click on finish test, when you see your test cases being passed, I want you to copy that code and save it appropriate name, so that in future references you can just use them. I hope everyone understanding what I am saying, because whatever you are submitting in the metal, they will be directly submitted to the server, but you can't have them stored in your local machine. So when you see that all the test cases are being passed, I just want you to copy that code and paste it in your local machine and save it with the appropriate question title. It will be helpful for you in the future competitive exams. As I mentioned here in this first one, M1 logic building, you have 29 problem statements. You have 29 problem statements. Until you explore them, you cannot pass through the exam. I am saying very seriously, until you explore them, you cannot pass through the logical building module. And in the M2A, you have 10. In the M2A, you have 10 logic building problems, and in M2B, you have these 8. These 8. Altogether, you have 47 logic building problems. I just want you to practice them, all of them, and save the code in your local machines for future reference. And I have solved all these 47 problems during my training session itself. So, if anybody is facing any problem, do let me know in the WhatsApp group itself, so that I'll be once again explaining that problem. I'll just tell how I have solved that particular problem by my code, so that if any others have any other optimized way, you can just share it in the group or in the comment section itself, so that others also will get to know how it can be further optimized. I hope everyone following what I am saying. So try start from today itself. Don't postpone it. Start from today itself. Try to do at least 2 to 3 problems every day. That's the only advice I would like to give. Because as per the schedule, you have your first assessment most probably in the next month, second week. That's the reason if you start exploring. And one more thing I would like to inform you, out of these 47, you will not be getting even a single problem. I'm saying out of these 47, you will not get even a single problem in the actual assessment exam. But if you solve these 47 coding problems, whatever might be the problem you will be getting during the assessment test, you will be able to solve it. I can assure you that. Out of this 47, not even a single problem you will get it. But if you solve these 47, whatever the problem you get it for the test, you will be able to solve it. Just keep the point in your mind. Accordingly, you work on them. And as I just mentioned, any problem you are unable to solve the code by making all the test cases pass, do let me know in the WhatsApp group or in the comment section, so that I'll just say how I have solved it, and I'll share my solution, which you can use it as reference. And if you have further optimized codes, you can share it. That's the advice I would like to give with regard to this logic building problems. So start working on these logic building exercises. M1, M2A and M2B. You have these logic building exercises. Yeah. Next, let's quickly discuss these flow control statements. So coming to these flow control statements, yesterday before ending the session, I have just given a glimpse of it. So we have three categories of flow control statements, where each category again we have three other classifications. So once again a quick recap. Selection statements, we have if else ladder, and then switch. Under selection statements, we have if else ladder, and switch. Coming to iteration statements, we have for, while, do while. Under iteration statements, we have for, while, do while. Under jump statements, we have break, continue, return. Under jumping statements, we have break, continue, return. So these are the three category of statements, and further three classifications under each and every category. I know most of you might be already knowing this, but since EC students are also there, I'm stressing very slowly. That's it. And as you all know, program execution is sequential. Program execution will be sequential. In order to alter this normal flow, we use these control statements. In order to alter this sequential flow, we use these control statements. So this is the flowchart for if condition. So this is the entry of the statement. The Boolean expression condition will be verified. If the Boolean expression is true, then this particular statement is executed. If it is not true, then directly this next statement will be executed. If this Boolean expression condition is true, then this statement block will be executed. If this condition itself is not true, then directly the next statement will be executed and continues execution. You can just explore them because it's too childish if I just execute all these things. You can just try them and explore. Next, coming to if else ladder. So this is the flowchart again. So if this Boolean expression is true, then these true block statements are executed. If this Boolean expression itself is false, then this else, that is the false block statements are executed. Remember the point, either this true block or the false block only will get executed, not both. Either true block or false block only gets executed, not both. Whichever block is executed, the next statement execution is guaranteed. Whether the true block gets executed or the false block gets executed, the next statement and followed by the subsequent statements execution is guaranteed. This is with regard to if else ladder. And next, similarly, else if ladder. So here in this else if ladder, you remember the point, if, else if, else if, else if, like this, and compulsory it must and should end with else. When you have else if ladder, it must and should end with else. If you have single if, it's not mandatory to have else, but when you have else if like this, must and should, it should end with the else block. And next, coming to switch case. So the small tricky you can get to see with this switch case is if break statements are not given. So if the expression evaluated is value 1, in this switch case, if the expression evaluated is value 1, then case 1 block gets executed. Since there is a break, the control comes out of the entire switch block, and statement X onwards execution continues. So if this expression evaluates to value 1, then the case 1 block gets executed. Since there is a break statement, the control comes out of this switch and execution continues from statement X. Suppose if the expression is evaluated to value 2, then this case 2 block gets executed, and since there is a break, the control again comes out of the entire switch block. Execution continues from statement X. Now my statement is, what if the brakes are removed here? What if the brakes are removed? Simple. Now if there is no break statement here, now what happens is, if this expression is evaluated to value 1, then case 1 block is executed, and then case 2 block gets executed, and then the default block gets executed. That means all the blocks gets executed until the break is encountered. If there is no break in the entire switch block itself, then whichever value is being evaluated with the expression in the switch, all the cases from that case value will be executed. Remember this point. What if this expression is evaluated to some value and that particular case is not involved? Then the default block gets executed. So if the expression of the switch is evaluating a value which is not handled by your case blocks, then the default block gets executed. That's the reason we'll be using break with regard to each and every case. That's the reason we have to use break with regard to each and every case, so that whichever case block is executed, immediately the control has to come out of this switch. So these are the three selection statements: if else, and then switch case. So please try all of these blocks, especially for EC students I'm recommending. Please explore all of these. As I just mentioned, try these things by removing breaks in between somewhere and try how it is working. Next, coming to while. So while condition. So if the condition is true, then this body of the loop gets executed. If the condition itself is false, then this body will be skipped. This entire body will be skipped. So, and as long as this condition fails, as long as this condition fails, this body of this loop continues to execute. I repeat, that's what the iteration statements are, meaning is meant for. As long as this condition is true, this body of the loop continues to execute, and when the condition gets false, then the control comes out of this body. Similarly, do while loop, with the only difference that the body of the loop in while gets executed only if the condition is true, whereas in do while, for the first time, it whether the condition is true or false, whether the condition is true or false, body of the loop gets executed, and for the subsequent iterations, the execution of the body is only if the condition is true. So with the do while, execution is guaranteed at least once. The body of the loop execution is guaranteed at least once. This fact you just need to remember. Coming to for. So here you have three parameters: initialization, condition, increment or decrement. So here first one is initialization, second one is condition, which will be evaluating to boolean. If the condition Okay, students, let's resume. So that's about while, and coming to for, as I said here, initialization, condition, increment or decrement. So here I want you to explore what happens if the initialization is not there, or condition is not there, or increment or decrement is not there. So I will just show you what happens if any of them are missing. Here you can just see, let me use the magnifier. So here if I am using for, okay, let me declare the variable above int I equal to 1. Now you can see I'm just keeping two semicolons, and then if I'm just saying hi. So here you see I haven't given any initialization because already here I have given I equal to 1, but I haven't used it. Understand that point, I haven't used it. Suppose if I am writing here I, otherwise if I am writing here I, now you should be able to guess what happens. Now if I just run this, if I just run this, you can see it's going on printing, it's going on printing infinitely. In the id, how do you stop is, here there is a stop symbol, you can just click this symbol, this is what to terminate. So if you don't give initialization, condition or termination, it will be going in infinite times. Suppose if I just give here condition I less than 10, I'm just giving the condition I less than 10. Observe the point. I have given condition, but I haven't given increment or decrement. Now what happens? You just see this. Again you can see it's continuing to print. Why? Because you haven't performed any change of the value. That means the value is never getting changed. Since the initialization is 1, it's continuing to print infinitely, because since the value is never getting changed, there is no point that this condition gets true. So this point you should be remembering. Now suppose if I just give here I plus plus, now I have given the condition, now I have, condition and increment. Now what happens? So if I just check this, now you can see the program got terminated when the condition was met. So it have printed me 0 to 9. Sorry, it have printed me 0 to 9. So this is how you have to understand. So here 0 is not of I, 0 is of x. Understand that point. 0 is not of I, that is of x. I have initialized it to 1, so it have printed from 1 to 9. It have printed from 1 to 9. So the before statement x is there now, so that's value is 0. Now what happens if I remove this condition? So just explore all these things, because these things will help you in the MCQ exam. Run as Java application. Now you can see it's continuing to print by incrementing the value. So stop the id. So this is the point you just need to remember with the for loop. So with the for loop, this is the point you need to remember. So few more tips I wanted to give. That's what with the control statements. So that's about the control statements. And coming to break, continue, return, it's very simple. I'll just quickly discuss those things and I'll wind up. So here, that's about the for loop. And next, coming to break, this break you can have only within the iteration statements. Sorry, you can have them switch in the switch also. You can have this break even in the switch also. So it will come out of the nearest closing brace. Whenever there is a break encountered, the control comes out of the nearest closing brace. This point you just need to remember. Whenever there is a statement break being written, it comes out of the nearest closing brace, and the subsequent statement that starts from the nearest closing brace gets executed. That's what the break statement is about. Here you can see the example. So for int I equal to 1, I less than or equal to 5, I plus plus. If I equal to 2, break. That means what happens? If for the first value it is being printing, it's printing. And next when the condition is true, it comes out of this block. Now a simple question. For suppose I have a nested for loops here. That means for I loop, within that I have for j loop. Now if I have written this statement within the for j loop, then what happens? Only the for j loop is exited, but the for I loop continues. That's the break statement. Next, coming to continue. So what continue will do is, continue will skip the statements and proceeds with the next iteration. Continue will skip the statements and proceed with the next iteration. When I am saying, you must be understanding this has to be only within the iteration statements. This has to be only within the iteration statements. You cannot have this continue within the selection statement. So continue must and should be written only in the iteration statements. You cannot have it in the selection statements. So that's what the continue does. So whenever you write this continue after checking certain condition, then the subsequent statements are skipped and the next iteration resumes. The next iteration resumes. And in case of for, what will be the next iteration? The condition check. The condition check. That's what the continue is useful. And here this quiz, let's simply understand this. Here class sample boolean b equal to true if b, if block. Now what happens if I just execute this statement? What happens? So it will be continuously printing if block. Sorry, this is selection statement, so if block gets printed. It's a selection statement, it's not iteration statement, so if block will be printed. Yeah, this is the point you just need to remember. This will raise error. This will raise error because while false. If I write while true, then you get this printed infinite times. This continues to print without stopping. But writing false, it is error. Remember this point. You can just try it in your IDE. Writing while condition false itself is error because unreachable code. Unreachable code is error. So you can never check directly for the condition false, because when you directly write the condition as false, you know that that condition can never be satisfied, and why you have written the subsequent block. That's the reason unreachable code is error. So just try that, you will get it error. So this is with the control flow statements. And next you have the arrays. Very quickly we will discuss this arrays one dimensional and two dimensional here, and I just will conclude this fundamentals, Java fundamentals. I'll just conclude today. And here you can see what are the different ways of declaring one dimensional arrays. So this is how you will be declaring. And remember the fact that in Java, arrays are objects. I mean, array allocation is done at runtime. Allocating arrays or storing arrays is done at runtime. So how do you create objects in Java? With the use of new operator. With the use of new operator. So you cannot specify the size at the time of declaration. In C or C++, directly what we will say, int x, and within the brackets you will mention the size. You will mention the size. But in Java, it is illegal to declare the size at the time of declaration. So declaration, you cannot have the size being mentioned. Size has to be mentioned either dynamically with the use of new operator, or directly assigning the values. Directly assigning the values. Here you can see. Here you can see. This is how you can just declare. So here in this statement you can see int. This brackets you can have beside the data type or the variable. That doesn't matter. Don't worry. You can have this square brackets beside the data type or beside the variable. So here you can see I'm not specifying any size. Specifying size will raise you compile time error. But how it will be considering the size? Since you have defined three variables, automatically this x will be allocated memory such that it can store these three values. This x will be allocated in the heap. Remember that all runtime allocations are done in the heap memory. All runtime allocations are done in the heap memory. So this x will be allocated memory in the heap for storing these three variables. Sorry, these three values. How you are going to access them? So the indexing begins from 0. So you start x of 0, x of 1, x of 2. And if you try to access x of 3, it's going to raise an error stating that array index out of bounds exception. It will raise an error saying that array index out of bounds exception. And this is another way of defining the array. So again int x, new int of. If you observe, this you can just try. I'm just telling you. If you just give the size also, when you are initializing the array, if you give this size, it will throw you error. It will throw you error. You can just try and explore. So when you are initializing, if you are saying new int like this brackets, it's not mistake. It's not going to raise any error. But when you are initializing the array and if you mention the size, this you can expect in the MCQ test. I repeat, when you are initializing the array, if you mention the size within this square brackets, it will raise you error. It will raise you error. So when you are initializing, no size to be specified. When you are specifying size, no initialization to be there. Remember the point. When you are initializing the size, elements are not to be specified. If you are specifying the elements, no size is to be mentioned. Remember the point. So this is how you will define the arrays. Here you can see, this is how you will retrieve the length of any array, x dot length. And if you have brackets, that's a function, and that we use for string arrays. For strings we use this with brackets. But whereas with arrays, x dot length, no brackets. And this is how you can observe here. And remember the point, in the local I cannot have any variable defined without initialization. But coming to arrays, since they are allocated in the heap memory, if you don't define any value, then by default they have the default value of the particular data type. Now here observe this, int x, this is declared x equal to new int of 5. It is initialized. You may ask the question, we have not given any values, but by default when you are allocating memory, automatically all the values are initialized to their default values. By default when you are allocating memory to the array, all the values are initialized to their default values. We already know that byte, short, int, long will have default value as 0. So automatically what happens is x of 0 to x of 4, because here we are allocated for x memory for storing 5 integers, that indexes from x of 0 to x of 4 all are initialized to 0. In the subsequent lines what you are doing is you are just overriding the value. So initially x of 0 to x of 4 all are initialized to 0. Now you are just overriding the values. So x of 0 you are overriding to 11, x of 4 you are overriding to 22. That is the reason when you are printing x of 0, x of 1, x of 4, you are getting this output as 11, 0, 22, because x of 0 and x of 4 you have overridden, but x of 1 you haven't overridden. And as I said, when memory itself is allocated, automatically all the values are initialized to the default values. That's the reason you are not getting any error. But if you just try to print x of 5, then you will get exception. If you try to print x of 5, then you will get exception. What will be the exception? Array index out of bounds exception. So that point you just need to remember. And this point also you should remember. This is also one of the possibility of asking the question in the assessment exam. So here what you are doing, new int of 5. If I want to increase the size, the only way to do is x equal to new int of 10. Then what happens is, whatever the previous allocation it have done, the reference is being destroyed, but again a new allocation will be done. It's not going to be expanded there. Remember the point. Int x equal to new int of 5, when you have done, memory is allocated in the heap to store 5 elements. But in the later, after few statements, if you rewrite the statement like this, x equal to new int of 10, then what happens is, now memory is allocated for 10 elements. Earlier allocation is not destroyed. I mean, it won't be expanded there itself. New allocation will be made for storing 10 elements, and only thing is, now the x will not be referring to the first element of the previous allocation. Now x will be referring to the first element of the new allocation. This point you just need to remember. And next, coming to two-dimensional arrays. So the flexibility with two-dimensional arrays in Java, what you have is, you can have each and every row different number of elements, whereas in C or C++ you will be having all rows same number of elements. All rows you will be having same number of elements, whereas in Java you can have each and every row different number of elements. It's up to you. So whatever the initialization here you are seeing, this is a symmetric matrix. That means you have all number of elements same in each and every row. All number of elements same in each and every row. But you can also have different number of elements for each and every row. That point you just need to remember. Next, here you can see just like how in case of one-dimensional array we have seen. Just like in case of one-dimensional array how we have seen. Similarly, here you can see two-dimensional for two square brackets we have given, and then here we have defined these arrays like this. So this is the first row elements, this is the second row elements, and this is the third row elements. That point you just need to understand. Next, here you can see this is error. So you can leave the column size empty, and later you can specify for each and every row how many columns, but you cannot leave the rows size empty and just give the column size. This is error. Understand the fact, just as I mentioned, each and every row can have different number of elements, but you cannot leave the row size empty and cannot specify the column size, but you can specify the row size leaving the column size. Later you can specify column size for each and every row, just like here, like this. So here you can see x of 0 new int of 5, saying that the first row will contain 5 elements, x of 1 initialized to 3. That means the second row will have 3 elements. Forget this, here one square bracket is missing. Observe my mouse cursor, here one square bracket is missing in this image. X of 0, only 4 elements are being shown here. Yeah, here you can see. In this example 2, you can clearly see. So new int of 3 the column size specified empty, and then x of 0, here you can see initialized with the 4 elements, x of 1 initialized with 3 elements, x of 2 initialized with 5 elements. This is how you can just see, and just try to execute them in your IDE and see. And these are quizzes. Which of the following are valid array declaration? So you can observe the first one. I hope you have got your answer. The first one is correct way of declaring. Yes. The second one is also correct way of declaring. Only thing is, in the first one you have separated the declaration and allocation. In the second statement we have combined both in single statement. That's the only difference. Oh sorry, I think semicolon is missing. In the second, semicolon is missing, but that might be a mistake. Next, in third case, this is error. Third case is error because, as I mentioned, at the time of declaration you cannot have size specified. So in this third statement you can see int a of 5. So size being mentioned within the declaration, it is error. Next, fourth one, it's correct. Fourth one, it is correct, initializing the array. Fifth one is also correct. Yes, you can write like this new int and have the values. Yeah, this we have seen before itself. Sixth one is wrong because when you are declaring the, I mean, when you are initializing the array, you cannot have the size being mentioned. You cannot have the size being mentioned. So this sixth one is wrong. That will raise error. Again, I need not tell, this will raise error because of this statement. Because of this statement. Observe my selection. Because of this statement, again this will be throwing an error. Int x new int of 10. So this you know, it will just return 0 because there is no concept of garbage value. So you will just get it 0. Next here 40. Yeah, now this will raise error. Understand the fact, this will raise error. The reason is, here what you are saying int x 2 square brackets, making it to be understood as two-dimensional array, and you are mentioning the size of the rows. You are mentioning the size of the rows, but you have left the column sizes empty. That means it is understood that you have 10 rows, but you haven't mentioned each and every row size. That means you haven't mentioned each and every row size. Then without mentioning the row size, then how can you ask to print the first element in the fifth row? Understand this. Here when you have defined, sorry, when you have allocated memory, here you have just said that you require space for 10 rows. That means from index 0 to index 9. So when you are referring here x of 4, you are referring actually to fifth row. You are actually referring to fifth row, but here you have not mentioned the column size. When you have not mentioned the column size, it is understood by the JVM that you are going to allocate each and every row size later. But here, without allocating the size of elements for each and every row, directly you are trying to access the fifth row's first element. You are trying to access the fifth row's first element. So it will throw you a compile time error. So this is the error here. Yeah, that's it with the Java fundamentals. So this is about the Java fundamentals. So very quickly, I just want you to show some tips for the assessment test purpose. So yesterday, okay, let me use the magnifier again. So yesterday I have shown you a few things and a few more tips I wanted to give you here. Suppose observe this carefully. Since I have covered arrays, I am just showing you this. Now what do you see? You can see that I have defined string args array and hello and world. That means args of 0 is hello, args of 1 is world. Now If I just try to display, any guess of the output? I just want you to guess the output. Now observe carefully here. Within this class first, I have defined string args array. This is an instance variable now, since I have defined it within the class above the main method, and I have initialized two values for this args array, making it to be understood that args of 0 holds the value hello, args of 1 holds the value world, and this is the main method which is having the string array args. So this string args is the local, it is the local, and now I'm just trying to print args of 0. I just want you to guess the output in your mind before I run this. So now I'll run and show you. I don't know how many of you already have got correct answer in your mind. So run as Java application. So you can see array index out of bounds exception. You can see array index out of bounds exception. I hope it is visible. You can see array index out of bounds exception. Why this occurred? Because here what is happening is, when I have defined my own instance variable args, the same args variable again is used for the main. And here when you are trying to print this args of 0, always the local scope overrides the global scope. Always the local scope overrides the global scope. That is the reason when you are trying to access args of 0, it is trying to access the first argument of the command line. It is trying to access the first argument of the command line. But we haven't provided any command line argument. That's the reason you are getting the array index out of bounds exception. And this I got it in my assessment. That's why I just thought of sharing it to you. So here many of them might give the answer as hello. Many of them might give the answer as hello. That's why I just thought of sharing it to you. So here the answer you are going to get exception, because here you have args defined here and another args defined within the main. So when you are referring to args of 0 from the main method, so it will refer the local args, that is of the main, and we know that it is mentioned for command line arguments, and since we haven't given any command line arguments, it's raising error. And if I just once again go to run as and run configurations, and if I just give in the arguments welcome, and then if I just go to apply and then close, now if I just try to run this, now you can see welcome. So this welcome is coming from the command line, not from the args array what you have defined. So this point I just want you to remember. And another few more points I just want you to remember is, even you can use here you. I just want you to remember a few more things. So I can just use like this. Instead of println, we can also use here printf. This is for assessment purposes. I'm just saying. Even this is legal. This is how you can even use the printf. And if I just use printf percentile small o and then comma a. I just want you to keep guessing what will be the output for this code which I am typing here. Before I just run it, I just want you to keep guessing what will be the output for the code what I am writing here. For assessment purpose, I am just giving these tips. Understand that. So here you can see I have defined integer a equal to 11, and instead of using println, I have used system.out.printf, and here you can see first line I am just using percentage %d. I think many of you might have guessed it right because you have known to see, so you might have guessed it right. Next I have used percentage %o, next I have used percentage %x, next I have used percentage %b. Now what happens? Let's run the program and then discuss what the result is saying. So run as Java application. So here you can see, uh, okay, I haven't used slash n. That's the reason they are coming in continuously. So observe this. The first is the 11. I haven't used slash n. That's the reason everything came in one line. 11. That means percentage %d. It is printing 11. Next I have used percentage %o. So it have displayed me 13. What is it? Octal. When I am using percentage %o, it is printing me octal. Next it is printed b, small b. What is it? I have used percentage %x, that is hexadecimal. When I have used percentage %x, that is hexadecimal. Next it have printed true, that is for percentage %b. So percentage %b, it returns the boolean. That's the output you should understand here. And next one more thing I just want to show you, sys out control space. Here I want to just show you a, sorry, let me show you one. Okay, let me show you like this only. A plus b plus c plus d. Any guess? So I just want you to think of the answer what it will be. I think many of you might be thinking the answer is going to be concatenation of these characters, that is a plus b plus c plus d. Now let's see what the output is actually. So you can see 394. You can see the output is 394. What is this 394? So when you are using single quotes instead of double quotes, what happened is it have concatenated the ASCII values. You all know that the ASCII value of small a is 97. So 97 plus 98 plus 99 plus 100. So it have just added those four, and then it have resulted 394. So if you are using single quotes, observe carefully in the exam, in the whatever the competitive exams you are appearing for. Observe carefully whether it is used single quotes or double quotes. If it is double quotes, you will be getting the concatenated value. When it is single quotes, the corresponding ASCII values are being uh, added, summed up. That's what the point you just need to remember. And next, similarly, if I just write here a equal to, okay, let me just take some int I equal to 0, boolean. These are for the exam purposes. I am just saying these are all the tips what I am just giving for exam purposes. Okay, a is already used, so let me make it d. So boolean d equal to true, b equal to false, and c I have just given. Now I am just saying c equal to small a or small a or I plus plus double equal to 0. find for the argument. Okay. Meanwhile, since it's being late, let's call for the attendance. I just want you to give your roll number in the comment section. Just give your roll number in the comment section when I am calling it. So 511, 518, 543, 546, 549, 551. Okay, anyway, I'm calling sequence wise only. Better all of you now. I want you to give your roll numbers in the comment section rather than me calling one by one number and again taking time. I want you to give your roll numbers in the comment section now, right now. This comments, whatever the roll numbers that you are passing in the comments right now, that will be considered as your attendance because many of them are just giving the numbers in the beginning and leaving. Here, what I'm trying to show actually is here I plus plus double equal to 0 is the relational operator. So I plus plus double equal to 0, what it will return actually? True, because it's post increment what I am using here, so it is true. Whereas this, oh sorry, here I have to use D. I have changed the variable name there, so that's the reason it is giving their error. So now if I just that is C. Now here what I have done is C equal to D or I plus plus equal to 0. Now what happens is, now this I double plus is post increment, so it will be checking the value as 0 only. So 0 double equal to 0. The result is true. Whereas D, what is its boolean value? True. So true or true. What will be the output? I hope you understood now. So now what happens when I just run this application? So you can see true being displayed. You can just see true being displayed. Now, if I just alter this little bit, like in place of D, let me give B, and here if I just say I plus equal to 2, now you see what I have given here B. What is B truth value? False. I plus or equal to 2 greater than 0. This is the assignment operation. That means I am just making it I plus equal to 2. So again I hope you have got your answer. So one is false, The other one is greater than 0, I'm checking. That is nothing but again true only. So when I just run this application, you will just again get it true only, because one true is enough for, or one true is enough. So that's what the points you just need to know. And I just want you to just see with and. Anyway, you got your answer, I think. If you just do with and, you know that if both are bitwise and, so what happens? Now B is false, then what happens? It doesn't require to check for the next expression actually. It doesn't require to check for the next expression. That's the reason you are getting the answer false. It doesn't require to check the next expression, because first itself B is false. The first itself, the B is false. So it will just give the answer as false for bitwise and. So these points you just need to remember. And one more point, integer x equal to 100, integer y equal to 100. Now if x double equal to y, sys out control space equal, next else sys out control space, okay, s is missing here, sys out control space not, I mean not equal. Now I just want you to think of it. Observe that I haven't given a small here. I have used integer, capital integer. Integer x equal to 100, y equal to 100, and then I'm just checking if x equal to y, I'm just printing equal, else I'm just printing not equal. I just want you to think the answer in your mind. Now when I just run this, you can see the answer equal. You can see the answer equal. I think most of you might have guessed it correct. Now, if I just change the value to 500, both x and y, I'm just changing the value to 500. Now, x is 500, y is 500. Now, I hope most of you might be surprised. Now, I have just changed the values x and y. Now, you can see the output not. So, here the point I want you to remember is, when you are using, instead of data type, when you are using the class, so the class will be using auto boxing technique, whose values are valid in between minus 128 to plus 128. I repeat, instead of data type, when you are using directly integer class, it uses auto boxing. JVM applies auto boxing here. So the values in between minus 128 to plus 128 are valid. That is the reason in the previous case, when I have initialized x and y as 100, it said equal. But now, since I have initialized it to 500, since the range is exceeded here, now it is saying not. This point I just want you to remember. And before winding up, very quickly, I'll just show you one small thing. I think most of you might have checked it. Z equal to 3. If I just say Z equal to Z, or directly let us declare like this, Z equal to 3, right, shift 2. Let me just print out this. Z. This is the last one. We'll just wind up the session. So here you can see Z equal to 3, two greater than symbols, which is nothing but the right shift. and then 2 I have given. Now I'm just trying to print Z. I hope most of you might have already explored this. If not, you can just check here. So when I just run this application, you can see what is the output 0. Why it is 0? Because what is happening here? What is the binary equivalent here? What is the binary equivalent of 3? 0, 1, 1. Now what am I doing here? Right shift. So for the first right shift, 1 will be gone. The rightmost one will be gone. For the second right shift, the next one will be gone. That's the reason it's filled with zeros now. It's filled with zeros. That's the reason you are getting the output as 0. Now for suppose, if I just change this sign, now I am using left shift. Since I have said about this right shift, I hope most of you can guess the answer. Now you can see the output 12. Now you can see the output 12. Now what is happening? When I am using left shift, this leftmost one, it will be shifted. So for the first time what happens? It becomes 110. And for the second shift, 1100. That is how you are getting. As you know, the decimal equivalent of 1100 is 12. So that's what the output 12. So this is about this shift operations. So with today's concept, I'm just concluding this Java fundamentals. I'm concluding this Java fundamentals completely, because in Java fundamentals we have only these things to be discussed. So I just want you to complete this hands-on exercises, and then update this completion status in your logins, update this completion status in your login profiles, and then another assignment what I asked you to do is continue with the logic building our plans. Continue with the logic building our plans. Start with M1. Try to complete those 29 in logic building our plan M1. After you complete all the 29 programs in logic building our plan M1, then you can go ahead with M2A where you have 10 problems. After completing those 10, at last you can go ahead with this M2B where you have 7 remaining. So whichever problems you are unable to pass through all the test cases, do let me know, so that I'll just explain my solution, and whoever have done it can share their solution. Whichever is optimized one, we can just try and understand that. That's from my side for today's session. And I asked for attendance. I asked every one of you to give your roll numbers in the comment section. So far I haven't received any roll number at this time. So I just remind once again, I want all of you to give your roll numbers in the comment section. Then only attendance will be considered. Please answer by giving your roll numbers in the comment section. Whoever gives your roll numbers in the comment section in the next couple of minutes, their attendance will be considered. Otherwise, I'm just ending the live session. So I'm just ending the live session in couple of minutes. So I just want you to give your roll numbers in the comment section.